I'm going to start with product, briefly going over each of the products that I mentioned before. But before I do that, before we broke for lunch, we were introduced to all of these lovely people here that are great role models for you. I was reflecting at lunchtime on what the main kind of message that I personally took away from that. And the word embody came up for me. These individuals here that have truly embodied, so they have fully integrated health and physical activity or movement into their life because they truly enjoy it and also have experienced, felt in their body the benefits. So for some of your clients, it takes a while for them to reach that, and I had a question about physical activity versus nutrition, because they're both completely different topics, but often an easier entry point for somebody to start that journey is to move their body first, and if you can help them to do it again and again and again, to the point that they can embody that behavior like these role models that you have all around you, then yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning, great shape. And continue that sustainable, healthy behavior. So we've got 4 products downstairs, if you haven't noticed. The S-Drive, which is the treadmill type looking piece of equipment. The S-Force, which kind of looks like a elliptical, the rower, and the Krankcycle. So I'll just talk a high-level overview of some of the key features. It's working.
Hello.
Yes. So we're going to talk about the S-Drive. I'll play video first. So that's the S-Drive. So some of the things that you would have seen in the video, and I did mention before, about the different types of resistance. The incline here is actually 7% incline, and that's simply because it helps it to go easier. If it was flat, as it's self-powered, it's actually quite hard to get it moving. So you saw there that some people were doing a sled push. There are 8 different levels, I believe. So one of the controls will control the resistance for sled push, and then you have 3 different positions, top, middle, and bottom, in which you can hold on to based on the level of your client and what's comfortable for them in terms of doing a sled push. And then on the other side, we've got magnetic resistance. And the good thing about magnetic resistance is the faster somebody runs, the harder it gets. The slower they go, the easier it gets. So if you think about, in terms of the levels, a big parachute will be able to catch more wind, so it's a higher resistance versus a smaller parachute. So that offers
excuse me, that orders magnetic resistance in a small footprint. So you can do all of these things, all of those exercises in what we call a small footprint. Typically, if you were doing a sled push, you would need quite a large area. So for some places where if you're in the city and space is a premium and you do have to pay rent as a facility, then this sometimes is a nice option for people where they can do different types of exercises but in a much smaller footprint. And you will have noticed in the video that there is a harness here. One tip, this is often how it's left on the gym floor, but if I'm new to exercise, this harness to me looks quite scary because I don't know what it's going to do. So the harness only needs to be used when you're doing sprinting, does not need to be used when you're doing resisted walking. So what I often recommend with people if they do have this is that you just pop it to the side. You actually remove it and then it just becomes a treadmill. Very simple. Everyone has seen a treadmill before, so they can jump on that. The monitor on the top, this is actually able to measure your metrics. So we've talked about wearable technology in terms of measuring calories. It has some workouts pre-programmed in there. So if you are motivated by that, it can come with this little console at the top. This particular version of the S-Drive is the power. So this horizontal bar at the bottom actually measures power output. So if you're a facility that is training with athletes that want to train and understand how to improve power, then that also has that capability. So this S-Drive is commonly seen in group training like you saw in the video and functional training spaces within the gym. Somebody say excuse me? No? Okay. Alright, so move on. So this is the S-Force, and I'll give you a little introductory video to the S-Force. So the S-Force, as I mentioned before, has a much larger range of motion here, this arc, and it's specifically designed for low impact, high intensity interval training. So which is why you'll often see it in the small group training space. It also has magnetic resistance, so similar to the S-Drive, it has magnetic resistance, and it has 5 different levels that you can easily adjust to change the weight. And it has some pre-programmed workouts in here. There's 2 positions. There is a horizontal position here when you're standing on it, which is slightly easier, and then a more advanced position here, which would look like leaning forward on the front of the handlebars, based on the individual if they wanted a harder workout. Cordless, so you can wheel it around, or you can store it away if you wanted to. Then, I don't have a video for the Matrix rower, but you will have seen downstairs the Matrix rower. Some of the key differences with our rower compared to others you will have noticed is the nylon rope. So it's a nylon rope, and also the handle is slightly wider. And the reason why the design thinking around that is because sometimes you'll see people that sit on a rower that may have a slightly different profile in terms of their body. Maybe they're carrying a bit more weight at the front. So when they row with their knees out because they can't, the bar's not big enough for them to cross the knees. So that's something that's involved there. It's also magnetic resistance. And in terms of that, you'll notice that it's a lot quieter. If you compare it to a Concept 2 rower, for example, there's no chain, no oil involved, so it's easy to service. So have a play around with that downstairs if you get opportunity. And then you will have noticed one other piece of equipment which looks different to perhaps some that you've seen before. This is called a Krankcycle. Similar to other ergometers that you use upper body. So if somebody has got an injury with their lower body, or you'll be interested to know, when we were doing research and development for this, we actually tested it on wheelchair basketball players. So, and how they have another different training option. So you can use the seat or not. You can use the straddle position or seat. It moves in both directions. It is something that can be quite challenging for people to get used to in terms of the movement. If you experience it yourself and have a try downstairs, you'll feel the movement involves a little bit more thought process rather than just getting on and push and go. But it's often used in coached environments, and I will show you a little video on the Krankcycle and how it's used.
Enhance your current indoor cycling programs by offering a new way to train in the studio with the Johnny G Krankcycle by Matrix and Crank Fusion. Crank Fusion effectively combines upper and lower body cycling for a well-balanced and challenging workout that builds strength, improves cardiovascular fitness, and torches calories. Fusion also gives participants with a lower body injury the opportunity to keep coming to class for that extra motivation to stay on track. Cranking is simple, fun, and easy to integrate in your group exercise studio. The Johnny G Krankcycle by Matrix competes with nothing and complements everything.
Alright, that's the Krankcycle. So it is a very high-level overview of some of the features, but if you are interested, please either ask myself or one of the members of our Matrix team if you've got any questions about it and how you use it. I would encourage you to explore, try, feel for yourself what it's like so you can understand what it would potentially feel like if in future your facility was to get something like that. So remember, right at the beginning, may seem a long time ago now, the last part of the presentation was all about bringing everything that we've spoken about together in order to create impact. How can we tie all of the things that we've spoken about together in order to create impact? So some research in terms of why people become personal trainers, you may be interested to know, and maybe some of this you can relate to too. Top 5 reasons why people become personal trainers. So when we ask that question, what is your why? Passion for fitness. You have to have a passion for fitness and health. Also helping others, so being of service to others. Some enjoy the flexibility of working for themselves. So if you're a freelance trainer or a part-time trainer, some people enjoy working for themselves. And in terms of the personal training market in the US and the UK, you can see respectively how big it is in those markets. So what does that mean? Presents a huge opportunity for you as professionals, personal trainers, in order for you to grow in this, to grow this industry. So this is how many registered personal training businesses are in the US and the UK. I'm not sure what the data is for India, unfortunately, so I apologize about that. But you can see in terms of global trends, the direction, hopefully, that India is moving towards, with the support of all of the people here, that the UHFF, also, so I can't remember his name, Madhukar, I don't want to say it incorrect. Before I even came to India, I was researching about some of the facilities in India, and his business came up, and I was really quite humbled to see how his journey has evolved and how he puts importance on educating you as professionals, as personal trainers. And I believe that his business supports that, and you can see that he really does value professional development for you here as an industry. So knowing that, hopefully India can start to head towards more registered businesses that offer personal training. Okay? That's back, please. So some of the most common things or factors that you see in what defines a successful personal trainer. What are some of the traits for successful personal trainers? Your ability to effectively communicate with your client. And some of the questions before, that is part of it, in terms of how you communicate with your client and how honest are you brave in asking them questions. your willingness to negotiate with them. Maybe their goal, like you said, is unrealistic. How can you take that approach in terms of changing that and being open to being adaptable, working together with them? Other factors are reputation management, I call it. So, like any service industry, your reputation is really important. It takes you years to build up and only a moment for it to just get wiped out. Just one bad experience and that can affect your reputation. And as personal trainers, it's really important to try to build and maintain a positive reputation in the industry, so that if a client has had a positive experience with you and achieved goals, they will automatically share that with their friends because it's something that they've been working on. So word of mouth recommendations, and also the convenience and the accessibility of you as a personal trainer. So if you're already a really successful personal trainer, maybe your schedule is actually full. So that may affect your ability to work with new clients, which is fine, but do you then perhaps help a colleague? Or even though I don't have the time slot that you want, I do know somebody else who's available. Or if you go on holiday and you take a break, do you consider passing that client on to somebody else to look after so they can continue their journey and then come back to you without the fear of losing that client to somebody else? So those are also things to consider. So that was the US. In the UK, most important factors, like I mentioned, there's reputation management. On top of that, also your technical knowledge. So specific to training, your technical knowledge. And also sometimes being part of an industry organization helps your credibility, which is a perfect opportunity with UHFF as they grow and as they evolve for you to become part of that movement. Also may help your credibility as a personal trainer. And then I would add one other thing that isn't on here is your knowledge of the body. So your knowledge of anatomy and physiology, and if you are interested, even psychology. So that's something that I would add to that also helps you to become successful. So right at the beginning, again, I spoke about some of the data considerations about member retention, which I will talk a little bit about now. And this retention guru is Dr. Paul Bedford, who I referred to earlier. Okay, so why do we always keep talking about retention? Why retention? Because retention is it's something that's common across the globe, something that is challenging for all people in the industry, whether you're an owner-operator, whether you're a personal trainer. So it's not something that is exclusive per country, it's something that's global. So if we look at retention, the main thing to take away from this slide is, if somebody is a member of your facility, in the first 12 months, the research shows that you will lose nearly 40% of your members. 40% of your members. So what things can you do to try to keep them? Why are they leaving? Are you asking them questions as to what was the reason why they decided not to come back? Did they just fall off the wagon, and nobody contacted them? Do you have strategies in place to have more regular touch points with them, conversations with them? Okay, so in 4 years, only 10% will still be members. If we go back to the movement about healthy lifestyle, then this contradicts that, because everyone falls off the wagon after 4 years, apart from 10%. So this is just a slide to monetize it, in terms of what that looks like, in terms of how much revenue you may be losing out of. As a trend, you can see here, basically, if we lose members, we lose more money as a facility. Okay, so that's monetizing that data for you. So earlier I spoke about, in understanding your client's needs, we spoke about what is their motivation? Appearance versus social. Are they socially motivated or are they motivated by appearance? And the research shows here, as I mentioned before, if they are motivated socially to come to your facility or train with you, they are nearly 10% more likely to be retained. So the orange line represents appearance versus social. So that's something to consider too. What is their motivation? Another interesting fact that you may want to consider is the demographic of your audience. So both age, but also is the training fun? Is your facility friendly and approachable, less intimidating? Or is it somewhere that only promotes hardcore training? I mean, there's a space for everyone in the industry, there is a spectrum. But considering fun and friendly training and being approachable may help you to retain your clients or your members, rather than, sorry, my clicker's not working again, rather than focusing too much on results and, as I mentioned before, appearance. So those that are 35 and over, research shows that there is a 50% lower cancellation rate. 50% lower cancellation rate if you have clients or members in your facility that are 35 plus. So that may help to balance out, if you're thinking about from a revenue perspective, it may help you to balance out those sums at the end of the month. So thinking about the demographic of your membership. And I also mentioned at the beginning, 70% in India currently are around 20 to 40. So how can we target those that are outside of 20 to 40, 40 plus, and even adolescents? How can we do some training for adolescents too, so they start at an earlier age? So other things to consider based on this research is what strategies, what marketing strategies, what collaboration opportunities do you have in terms of trying to market that approach. And some of your facilities, as I mentioned, may have a slightly different vision and different feel, and that's also okay. All right, just bear with me, we're nearly there. Okay, so some key takeaways for you to consider when it comes to personal training. How can you find ways to balance your soft skills, your interpersonal skills, with your intellectual, your IQ, your technical skills? Some personal trainers are very focused on the program that they've written and the results, and just keep going. So others are more adaptable. Even though they've written that program, they may throw it out the window, and then we may have to write a whole new program. But understanding through your verbal screen or checking with your client, how can you appeal to that individual's heart, not just their head? So how can you build that relationship with them, and so they genuinely feel like you have their best interests at heart? So earlier we spoke about that programming, the options, option A and option B. That falls under this category in my mind, in terms of having the ability to check in with your client. Maybe they had a really bad night's sleep because they've got a newborn child, sleepless night, but they still came to train with you. And that, I think, deserves acknowledgement. So it may not be about the training session that you're doing with them, just the fact that they actually showed up, despite the fact that they had a sleepless night. Work with your client and meet them where they are on the day. So that's also off the back of what I've just said. The verbal screen, sending them a little message in the next day, making it a bit more personal, meeting them where they are. The challenge meets the person at their level on any given day, which may change. So just bearing that in mind. So meet the person where they are. How can you find ways to improve your, I mentioned before, reputation, but also by truly being responsible for your client's health when they are in your care? I mentioned before that ultimately we are all in a position to impact our clients, and that I don't think is a small obligation. If somebody puts their trust and their health in your hands, I believe that that is a significant obligation. So how can you be responsible and how can you be professional about it? By always putting their health first. How can you manage their expectations? This is very challenging for many personal trainers. How can we continue to manage their expectations every time they come? Maybe they've got a goal and they just want to, this is the way I want to do it. How can you just keep, maybe it's a dance, so to speak. How can you stay in that moment with them, manage their expectations, and just continue to work with them within your knowledge, but also maybe together collaborating with other people? How can you manage their expectations? And that's also tied into understanding your client's needs more from the beginning, helps to create that foundation, may make it easier in future to help manage your client's expectations. Okay. Final thoughts. Many people, myself and perhaps many of you included, will understand that doing exercise is good for my health. Many of you understand that. It's easy, simple, right? The challenge is the intention gap. I have the intention to do exercise or physical activity because I know it's good for me, but the gap between me knowing and doing, that's also part of managing expectations. So how can you help to make that gap smaller so that they shift from intention to doing, so from thinking to doing in a shorter space of time? Less contemplation about it, less thinking about joining the gym later, I'll just wait for my New Year's resolution, I'll wait, maybe next month, maybe. How can we reduce the intention gap and get people moving straight away? And I think part of that is, as I mentioned before, is engaging with the heart and the head. Not just the head, but the heart and the head. So another challenge I have mentioned before is how can you also push yourself out of your comfort zone to speak to people that you don't already know, that aren't already your clients. If you're in a facility, typically we are like magnets. We get drawn to people that are similar to us, have similar experience, they enjoy similar activities. How can you push yourself outside of your comfort zone and engage with people that you don't already know that may potentially become your client in the future? So a little bit of research is that if a member visits the facility 4 times in the first month, so they become a new member of your facility and they visit 4 times in the first month, once a week, they are 12% more likely to continue to be a member at your facility. So that's why new member onboarding, or whatever it is that you would like to call it, is so important. That first month, if you can get them to come in just once a week, then you're going to increase the likelihood that they will remain a member of your facility. So I've repeated these themes, variety and choice, over and over again. Also very important. We touched on friendly and fun just now. Exercise does not have to be painful, does not have to be a bad experience. It can be very enjoyable. So think about how you can keep that enjoyment for your members. So that's the social part. And remember, right at the beginning, I talked about a win-win-win situation. So how can we continue to work on that win-win-win situation? It's not zero sum. So what I mean by zero sum, it's not like a football match where you have to have somebody that wins. Everybody can win. So you as personal trainers can win by keeping your clients and looking after them. Your client can achieve goals with you. Of course, that's why they're hiring you, because you're the professional. You're going to guide them to achieve their goals. And as an owner-operator, you can also keep your members if we consider all of the things that we've spoken about today. So that's pretty much everything that I have to share with you today. So I thank you very much for your attention and your time. Happy to answer questions. We've got a little bit more time before we go away. If there's not too many questions and there is somebody in the audience which would be open to doing maybe some role playing, you may find that beneficial. But this is a little parting gift. It's just some tips that I've put together. I may have spoken about them already today, so this is up for you for your reference. But does anyone have any questions? No questions. Very quiet. Sleeping after lunch.
I want to know one thing.
Yes?
Is it possible for Matrix or any create an app or something as a device which can be used for personal trainers?
Yes, we have that already. It's called Matrix Learning Center. So it's free. You don't have to subscribe. So Matrix Learning Center is a resource that Matrix has created. It is a learning and education resource for personal trainers, not just personal trainers. Also, you can give that link to your clients. There's no login. It's an open website. I think it's matrixlearning.com, but just Google Matrix Learning Center. There are thousands of exercises on there. There are webinars. So we have 4 different constituents in terms of who we support. So we support owner-operators and technicians, the end user, which are clients, members, and also personal trainers. So there'll be 4 different quadrants there in terms of, based on who you are, then you can go to the relevant. And then it's also, there's exercise libraries there, there's things to help you to stimulate some thought, get some ideas.
Coming to that, I want to know that can we have a device like an app which we can brand it as an individual entity, as an individual personal trainer?
Oh, yes.
But designed by Matrix?
Yes, of course. So the connected solutions portfolio, the connected solutions that we spoke about right at the beginning, is a product as part of Matrix, which is essentially, part of it is white labeled. So there are different parts of that. There is asset management, which helps a facility to look after their equipment. If there's a fault, it will send an automatic error, so that's more owner-operators. But then from a personal training perspective, we have what's called personal training portal and also workout tracking network. So it's something that is a product that comes with, it doesn't come with, it's an add-on to our products. And then there is an app, personal training app. So inside there, you can create assignments, you can create workouts, you can drag and drop different exercises, create all of your programming on there for your particular client, and then assign it to your client, and then they can grab out their phone, have communication with you also, so there is a messaging, also a feature in there, and you can stay connected to them. So, but this only works on Matrix products, so if they were to go into a facility that has Matrix, they can then log on with their RFID, their program will come up, so you've assigned them a program, their program will come up, and they can either do exactly the program that you've assigned for them, or based on how they're feeling that day, maybe they've edited it a little bit, and then they'll do that, and then when they've finished, you will get to see what they've done. And then that's a way for you to keep engagement high. There are also categories in terms of risk. Is that person high risk of perhaps losing them as a member? Are they in facility, out facility? So many, many different capabilities and features. So yeah, if you want to learn more about that, then we'd be happy to discuss more.
But that comes only with the inbuilt with the machine, right?
Yes, it's part of it.
When a club buys them. So my question is, in case if the person is not using, but if they still want to be associated with Matrix, as because you design the devices with such a good facility of understanding the technique and motivating the person at the same time. So can you create something on an individual basis where we can subscribe if you're not a gym owner? If on an individual basis, I'm saying suppose
As a freelance personal trainer, you're saying. Yeah.
want to buy something which they market on their name, like of course it's Matrix product, but what I'm trying to say is that they give it as a extra thing for their members, which they can they can use it whenever they want, like an app which they can understand their.
At this point, for individual users, it's more facility based. Yeah.
Or something like that.
I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm happy to speak to the Connected Solution product guys over in the US and find out for you. Yeah. So I don't know the answer to that question right now. It might be something that's in the pipeline that they're working on. Yeah.